Hello everybody, it's a pleasure to be with you again for the second stage of project management, which is called the project initiation. For this session we will cover a initiation stage, elements of the initiation stage, the success factors, and definitely we'll be defining each and every stage of the initiation step. The project initiation phase is the first phase in the project management life cycle, as it involves starting up a new project. You can start a new project by firstly defining its objectives, scope, purpose, and deliverables to be produced. The project initiation phase is in fact the conceptualization of the project. You will see this section describes the basic processes that must be performed to get a project started. Accordingly, the purpose of the project initiation phase is to specify that the project should be accomplished. The caution in this purpose is if the customer's needs are inadequately articulated, then you will see that poorly formulated goals and objectives will stand out as a significant source of concern. This starting point is critical because it is essential for those who will deliver the product or the process, for those who will use that product or process, and for those who have a stake in the project to reach agreement on this initiation. The initiation phase is the first project phase and is the predecessor to project planning. Activities conducted during the initiation phase will eventually be integrated into the various planning documents and will drive planning elements such as schedule and budget. In fact, as you can see in the diagram, where initiation is linked with other phases. You cannot think of initiation as an isolated activity or item. It is linked firstly with planning. You will see the different loops: execution, monitoring and controlling, and definitely at the end there will be closing. All these are within a bubble, meaning that we are in a closed system where each and every item are interlinked. The elements of the initiation phase, in fact the basic processes for the project initiation phase are firstly creation of a service product description statement, development of a project feasibility, development of a project concept document, and creation of a project charter. In fact, we will cover all these elements during our session today. Just to give you an idea of the importance of the initiation stage, we have like 10 pictures in front of you, starting with the first one. It tells you how the customer explain it. It's followed by how the project leader understand it, how the analyst design it, how the programmer wrote it, how the business consultant describe it, how the project was documented, what operations installed, how the customer was billed, how it was supported, and finally what the customer really needed. Here you will see that the common link in order to avoid these misunderstandings would be good communication. Starting with the first item, that is the creation of a service product description statement. In fact, the service product description statement is an informal, high-level statement contained within the project concept document, which describes the characteristics of the service, product, process to be created. The development of what we call project feasibility. There are in fact four basic components to project feasibility. First one is problem description. Second one is approach overview to be used. Third one, potential solutions to problems. And the fourth one is preliminary recommendations. Very important stage here, the development of a project concept document. The project concept document should not be a collection of product or process deliverables, but it should be clear and should be able to define, firstly, what is to be done, why is it to be done, and what business organizational value it will provide when the project is completed. To summarize what we just mentioned, we are having a pie chart with three key sections. What is to be done, how will it be done, and why is it to be done. The fourth item, which I consider as very important, we are talking here about the creation of a project charter. In fact, a project charter is created to formally communicate the existence of the project. That is, you are telling people what your project is all about. The project charter is issued during the project initiation phase and is looked upon as the beginning of the planning phase of a project. It is used as the basis to create the project plan. Documents that we consider as very important. Inputs to developing the project charter are the project feasibility document and the project concept document. These documents identify a need and establish senior management commitment in any organization. If you don't have commitment from senior management, your directors or board, it will be quite difficult for you to even start or initiate the project. Some attributes of the project charter is, in fact, it should contain the following: the project scope, very important, the project authority, and critical success factors. What is the project scope? In fact, it is documented at a high level in the project charter. The level documented must be sufficient to allow for further decomposition within the project plan. For example, the requirement for training may be identified within the project charter. Requirement for training normally is the training need analysis. The project authority, in fact, because of a project's complexity, many difficult decisions must be made to keep it on track. For this reason, we have the project charter, which defines the authority and mechanisms to resolve potential problems, if any. We have in fact three levels of authority. A level of management is required that can provide organizational resources to the project and have control over the elements that impact it. The project charter must establish a project manager who is given authority to plan, execute, and control the project. And the project charter must establish a relationship between the project, and senior management. In the initiation phase, the project partners enter a temporary relationship with each other. In order to prevent the development of false expectations concerning the result of the project, it makes sense to explicitly agree on the type of project that is being started. Critical success factors which need to be highlighted. In fact, to ensure the project progresses satisfactorily, critical success factors or high-level milestones should be clearly defined with planned dates to measure progress, without which our project may be just a flop. These can be used to approve the completion of a phase or milestone and as a go or no-go decision point to proceed with the project. These critical success factors ensure that the products and services delivered meet the project objectives in the time frame established in the project charter. You can see an example of milestone, that is the timeline, with activities milestone 1, 2, 3 and 4 with corresponding dates, date 1, date 2, date 3 and date 4. Once it is well defined, you will see that it becomes very helpful in order to assess progress in or within the project. The project charter template, in fact the project charter is the major output from the initiation phase of the methodology. Major sections of the project charter include some general information, project background, project objective, project scope, project constraints, project authority, roles and responsibilities, critical success factors, disaster recovery methodology, and definitely any signatures and or approval. The project overview, in fact you need to know about what is the project, define the goal of your project, and define the scope of this project. The current status, in fact, will explain what progress has been made since the previous milestone, which tasks have been completed, what issues have been resolved, what new issues have risen. Is the project currently ahead of schedule, on track, or delayed? If delayed, what is the mitigation plan? Issues and resolution. We need to describe the issue. How was it resolved? What and how did it impact the project in terms of time, cost, and any other related issue? Some potential barriers to project initiation. Definitely any project, any stage will face barriers or difficulties. Some common barriers such as indecision and hesitation can be faced by project managers at this particular stage. Examples of these barriers include project team frustration, management non-commitment, customer indecision. Problems during the initiation phase. Many problems during the phase lead to difficulty in getting a project moving forward. However, the most difficult commitments to obtain are from the key stakeholders, namely senior management and customers. Just to give you an overview of some of these problems, firstly, you have scarcity of resources. Locating the right people can be quite difficult, and this will definitely impact on the project. Lack of consensus on project objectives. It is not uncommon to find that there are many different ideas as to what the project should have been. Lack of management support or funding. Unfortunately, the situation sometimes arises in which there is a recognized need for a project to be initiated. However, there is no one to champion the effort from an executive level. People may not support a project for a variety of reasons. This can be a huge issue should problems result later in the project. Yes, as you can see, the relationship of the initiation stage with the other stages. Normally we develop a project charter, which is then linked with develop the preliminary project scope statement, and these have a dynamic relationship with the planning process, execution of the process, monitoring and controlling process. Developing the project concept document. In fact, there are various methods for developing the needed concept information that the project team may wish to use. These include people coming together through some brainstorming sessions. They may use formal executive meetings, otherwise stakeholder or customer meetings. Then you will have a product description statement, followed by the project feasibility determination, and definitely you have some interviews with subject matter experts. The project initiation document is a very important document. It normally does the following. It defines your project and its scope. It justifies your project. It helps to secure funding for the project wherever necessary. It defines the role and responsibilities of project participants, and sometimes gives people the information they need to be productive and effective right from the start. It may take another name. We may call it also a project charter. As mentioned before, here we are going to explain the what of project and project management. In fact, in the first section, normally tells the reader, the participant, what the project is seeking to achieve. It describes the problem that the project is seeking to solve, as well as a full definition of the project. And you will see that this section typically covers the following topics. You have the background, what is the context of the project and why is the work needed. Project definition. Then you have the purpose of the project. Why are you doing this work? It describes the desired end result of this project. You have your well spell out objectives. What specific outcomes will be achieved and how will you measure these outcomes? You need to remember to limit the number of objectives for your project. Normally 4 or 5 goals are typically enough. Very important aspect, you have the scope. What are the boundaries of this project? For example, type of work, type of client, type of problem. the geographic area covered. It normally lists any areas excluded that you believe stakeholders might assume are included but are not. The more specific you are, the less opportunity there is for misunderstanding at a later stage in the project. The what also include the deliverables. What will the project deliver as outputs? Where you can, describe deliverables as tangible items like reports, products, or services. We need to remember to include a date that each deliverable is expected. You'll use this information to monitor milestones. What are the constraints? That is, what things must you take into consideration that will influence your deliverables and schedule? There are normally external variables that you cannot control but you need to manage. Section 2 covers the why of the project. It is advised to build a business case to show why your project is going ahead. Then you describe the effect the project will have on the business and support it with a detailed account of the risk that should be considered. The business case normally includes the benefits. Why are you carrying out this project and what benefits do you expect it to deliver? Include information on how these benefits will be measured. Definitely include some options like what other courses of action were considered as this project was designed and developed. We should not forget about the cost and time scale within the business case, where you provide a breakdown of project costs and related financing. Together with a cost-benefit analysis, how are the costs of the project balanced against expected returns? Risk analysis includes 4 major components. Firstly, you have the risk identification, where you identify the risk within the project and that you'll either need to manage or accept. You have risk prevention. You describe what you are going to do to mitigate or manage the risk. Risk management, where you can prevent risk. What are your contingency plans for dealing with them? What action will you take should the risk materialize? And finally, risk monitoring. What processes do you have in place to routinely assess the risks associated with your project? Section 3. Describe the who, people involved in the project. Here we describe how the project will be organized and managed. Identify reporting lines and outline specific roles that will be filled. You need to be clear about staff roles so that you don't duplicate responsibilities and so that everyone is clear about what's expected of them. If this is a long-term project, you need or may even consider developing job descriptions for team members. The roles and responsibilities assigned to each and everybody within the project will start with the project organization chart or structure. Here we need to create a diagram that shows the lines of authority and reporting line for each project team member. The project funding, who has the ultimate authority and control over the project and its implementation. Project management or project manager, who is the project manager and what are his or her responsibilities. Project team, who are the key members of the project team. What are their roles and job descriptions? What are their phone numbers, contact details, emails? What is their original department or organization? And very important is to whom do they report to on a daily basis. The initial project plan, we need to initiate and start with a project plan which include the assignments, what major task with timeline or milestone will be completed during the project. The schedule provide a report of your estimated time involved for the project. You are probably been already prepared a high-level Gantt chart or similar schedule so that your project initiation development plan simply summarize the anticipated schedule. Your human resources, how many days activity will be needed to complete the project, how many support staff will be needed, will you need to bring more people onto the project team, project control, how will progress be monitored and communicated, and very important aspect is the quality control, how will the quality of deliverables be evaluated and monitored. As we can see from the diagram, dependencies and resources, we need to ask ourselves the question, what are the dependencies that affect the timeline, cost and output of this project? Here we have the manufacturing, sales department, engineering, remote teams, vendors, contractors that are interlinked or linked with that particular project. The defining phase include specific and typical stages. After the project plan, which was developed in the initiation phase, has been approved, the project enters the second phase, what we call the definition phase. In this phase, the requirements that are associated with a project result are specified as clearly as possible. It involves identifying the expectations that all of the involved parties have with regard to the project result. We need to ask ourselves a big question: what type of project is it? A research and development project, a project that will deliver a prototype or proof of concept, a project that will deliver a working product. The project requirements, it is in fact important to identify the requirements as early in the process as possible. Our friend distinguishes several categories of project requirements that can serve as a memory aid. There are the preconditions, functional requirements, operational requirements, and definitely the design limitations. Preconditions form the context within which the project must be conducted. Some examples include legislation, working condition regulations, and approval requirements. These requirements cannot be influenced from within the project. There are the functional requirements. These requirements are those that have to do with the quality of the project result. Let's say an example, how energy efficient must an automobile be, or how many rooms must a new building have. The operational requirements involve the use of the project result. For example, after a software project has been realized, the number of malfunctions that occur must be reduced, let's say, by 90%. Finally, the design limitations or requirements that involve the actual realization of the project. For example, the project cannot involve the use of toxic materials or international partners for whom it is unclear whether they use child labor. To sum up on the definition stage or project initiation stage, it is very important that all parties that are involved in the project are able to collaborate during the definition phase, particularly the end users who will be using the project result. The fact that end users are often not the ones that order the project perhaps explains why they are often ignored. The result of the definition phase is a list of requirements from the various parties who are involved in the project. Every requirement obviously has a reverse side. The more elaborate the project becomes, the more time and money it will cost. In addition, some requirements may conflict with each other. The client or end user of the project is indeed invited to collaborate on the requirements during the definition phase. As a point of departure, it is helpful to make a habit of organizing meetings with all concerned parties during the definition phase of a project. Dear all, we have reached the end of the second part of the training. I will advise you to work out the exercise you have in front of you and to send me by email. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.